Hey guys, we are going to solve this equation using completing the square. So maybe normally when you looked at this, you would probably try and factor, and when you tried to factor, it wasn't working, right? So there's two options from there. We can complete the square or do the quadratic formula. On this one, we are going to complete the square. If you want an example with the same problem where I use the quadratic formula, I will link it in the corner, okay? All right, when completing the square, my whole goal is to get this equation to look something like this, okay? My numbers are going to be different, but I want a parenthesis squared equals something, okay? That's my whole goal. So my first step is to get my variables alone, okay? So to do that, I'm going to add 15 to both sides, okay? Keep my equation balanced. So that makes those go away, which is what we wanted. So then I have x squared minus 10x equals 0 plus 15 is 15, right? Okay, next, my next thing I need to do is we are going to find what number I need to add to this so it factors to a parenthesis squared, okay? How do I do that? Well, someone smarter than me figured out. If we take b, divide it by 2, and square it, that is my magic number that is going to make this factor beautifully, okay? Now you're like, lady, there is no b on this paper, okay? This is where b is coming from, okay? When we have a quadratic equation like this, the number in front of my x we call b, okay? So in this case, it is negative 10, okay? So I'm going to take negative 10, divide it by 2, and square it, okay? Negative 10 divided by 2 gives me a negative 5. And then when I square that, I get a positive 25. Okay, so I'm going to add 25 up here to this side. If I add it to this side, I got to add it to the other side, right? Okay, so let's see what happens now that I've added that. On the left, I'm going to have x squared minus 10x plus 25 equals 15 plus 25 gives me 40, okay? Okay, now what? Now I'm going to factor this side. Now, because I added 25 and I'm completing the square, I know that this is going to factor to x minus 5 times x minus 5, okay? Now, if you happen to forget that, you can just go ahead and factor it where we do 25 times 1, what two numbers multiply to 25 and add to negative 10? Well, it would be negative 5 and negative 5, right? So that equals 40. But since these are the same, right? X minus 5 times x minus 5, I can rewrite that as x minus 5 squared equals 40, okay? Now, from the beginning, isn't that what we wanted? Yeah? I mean, the numbers are different. It's a negative instead of a positive, but that's what we wanted. We wanted parentheses squared equal to something. Because now I can easily solve for x, okay? So again, I'm trying to get x alone, so I need to get rid of that squared. To get rid of a squared, we take the square root, right? Those cancel, so I end up with x minus 5 equals the square root of 40, which whenever we introduce a square root into an equation, we need to do plus or minus, okay? Why is that a thing? That is a thing because say we have the square root of 9, right? The answer could be 3 because 3 times 3 is 9, right? But my answer could also be negative 3 because negative 3 times negative 3 is also 9. So we need to list both possible answers. So that's why we put that plus or minus, okay? Now, the square root of 40 is not a pretty number, but I do want to check and see if it can be simplified at all, okay? If you need a review on this, I will link a video in the corner for you. But I'm going to take 40 and do what we call the prime factorization, right? So 2 times 20, and then I circle any numbers that are prime, okay? And so I'm going to keep going. 2 times 10 gives me 20. 2 is prime. 2 times 5 gives me 10. 2 is prime and 5 is prime, okay? So that's the prime factorization of 40. 2 times 2 times 2 times 5, okay? Now, any doubles that there are, I can pull on the outside of my square root sign, okay? Since there are two 2's, 2 times 2 gives me 4. The square root of 4 is 2, right? So these two cancel out, and I can bring a 2 on the outside, okay? And on the inside, I'm left still with that 2 times 5, which gives me 10. Okay, if you were like, that was witchcraft, I have no idea what you just did, I'll link a video in the corner, okay? All right, this is equal to x minus 5 still, right? Okay. Good job sticking with it this long, okay? All right, I could have dropped those parentheses, they're just still there. Okay, now, again, I'm just trying to get x alone, so I need to add 5 to both sides, right? Okay, so when I do that, that goes away. So I'm just left with x. Yay, x is alone. But then it's like, okay, this is not very pretty looking, right? I need to add 5 to that plus or minus 2 square roots of 10, okay? So what we usually do is we're going to write the 5 first. So it'll be 5 plus or minus 2 square roots of 10. And I know it might not be pretty, but yes, that is our answer, okay? Sometimes your teacher might want it broken out into 2. So if they want that, it would be x equals 5 plus 2 square roots of 10. And if you wanted, you could even plug this into your calculator and figure out what that ugly decimal is. And it also x equals 5 minus 2 square roots of 10, right? Now, if you're like, why is it such an ugly number? Oh gosh, number, sorry. Well, remember the reason that we did completing the square is because this didn't factor pretty, right? It wasn't like x plus 2 times x minus 5, right? So that's why we did completing the square, because it wasn't pretty numbers. Now, that being said, you can use completing the square when it is pretty numbers if you just like this way. But it is for use a lot of times when it doesn't factor pretty, okay? All right, I hope this made sense. If it did help you, if you could hit the like button, that would be awesome. Check out any of those other videos if you were confused. But hopefully this made sense. Thanks, bye.